Mr. Secretary, I want to say to you right now, your behavior is disgraceful, and the deaths, the children assaulted, the children raped, they are at your feet, and if you had integrity, you would resign. And I will tell you, the men and women of the Border Patrol, they've never had a political leader undermine them. They despise you, Mr. Secretary, because you're willing to let children be raped to follow political orders. This is a crisis, it's a disgrace, and you won't even admit this human tragedy is a crisis.
Claiming 1 minute chairman time, Mr. Secretary, would you like to respond to any of those questions?
What the senator said was revolting. I'm not going to address it.
Your refusal to do your job is revolting.
Daggone. Ted always makes me uncomfortable. Joining me now, Julio Rosas, senior writer, townhall.com, Marine, also author of the book Fiery But Mostly Peaceful. Julio, Alejandro Mayorkas, kind of a job's he done down there on the border? You're always down there in the mix.
I mean, that line of questioning from Senator Cruz, that's been a long time coming. I mean, obviously because his state has been bearing the brunt along with Arizona as well, and so this was definitely something that Mayorkas of course he didn't respond to that, because Senator Cruz is absolutely right that the border has always been a problem, right? That's never been in dispute. But just like with every other issue that the Biden administration has approached, they've made the border 10 times worse. And so that has led to an increase, obviously with people crossing the border, but also the crimes that happen along the border with people trying to get into the United States, with the human trafficking, the sex slavery. We've just had that recent report from the mainstream media talking about the increase in child labor in these meat processing facilities and these, auto parts facilities that are, not for, children to be working in, but because there's an influx of unaccompanied minors that have come for the past 2 years, of course they're going to be put in these types of positions. And honestly, those kids are the lucky ones because they're not working in sex slavery, right? I mean, and that has also increased. So it's very, very frustrating as someone who's seen it all firsthand, and then you see someone like Mayorkas who knows all this. I mean, this guy has leads one of the most intelligent gathering agencies in the country, and he knows all this, and yet he's trying to make this posture of like, well, this is a challenge. It predates us. This is the previous administration's fault. This is happening hemisphere-wide. And it's like, well, yeah, it's happening hemisphere-wide because they're trying to get to our country.
Julio, explain the morale of Border Patrol right now, because I know some Border Patrol agents, and I'm sure I don't have as many in my phone book as you do. Well, I guess it's all on our phone now. I just stated myself. But I know I don't have as many numbers as you do. What's morale like in Border Patrol?
It's terrible. It's been terrible for a very long time. In fact, I had an agent out of Yuma, Arizona, which has been one of the hardest hit areas along the border, and that's even smaller than the Rio Grande Valley in Texas. But I had an agent just message me just last night, and he was furious with what Mayorkas was saying. And I think that's something that's not often highlighted enough, is just the fact that Border Patrol, the agents that are constantly on the field, I mean, they see it firsthand, right? They see it every day. A lot of them have worked through multiple presidential administrations, and they will tell you that this is the worst administration we've had to work under. And I have never heard of a Homeland Security Secretary, even a Border Patrol chief, that is as loathed as the current ones. And obviously that's for a reason, right? Because again, Mayorkas knows the cause and effect, and he knows the policies that have an effect on immigration. It's not just because America is great, although obviously we're in a tough spot, but he's still carrying out these policies because he knows if he goes against the Biden administration, he's going to be out of a job. And so he's choosing the job over quite literally the security of the nation and the human tragedy and the human suffering that goes along with it.
Julio, I know that we have families watching. I'm glad we do. And this will be family friendly, but you made a reference earlier to the children and the women and sex slavery. And this is something I've tried to explain to people, what these people are going through once they get across the border, because the normal American, wife, husband, kids, school, job, does not realize the absolute horror that some people are going through in our country because of that southern border. So as gently as you can you elaborate?
Yeah, I mean, so one of the examples that I have about that, because you're right. It's not just people making it that get abused along the way. A lot of times it does continue to happen after they get to the United States. And an example I have of that is it was one of the very first times I was down at the border during this crisis. And I kept hearing people, because I would ask them where they were going after they were going to get released. And I kept hearing North Carolina, North Carolina, North Carolina, in addition to places like New York, Chicago, Houston. I mean, the cities, but I mean, North Carolina kept coming up. And so I asked a buddy of mine who worked at DHS under the Trump administration. I said, hey, why do I keep hearing about North Carolina? What's going on over there? And he said that because of, some of the counties there are sanctuary, not just cities, but counties, because the sheriff's department won't work with them, or won't work with ICE. The cartel presence in that state and those areas has increased. And so oftentimes, because, you hear about the price, the thousands of dollars to cross. And a lot of these people, they're coming here because they don't have thousands of dollars. So they're in debt. So once they get released and once they get to, the cartel will tell them, you're going to this location so that you can work this job or that job to pay off the debt that you've accumulated. And it's not, before it was like, $5,000, $6,000 up to $10,000. When I was just in the Rio Grande Valley a couple of weeks ago, we encountered an Ecuadorian who was paying $30,000, which is very unusual because typically when you get to the tens of thousands, like the Chinese nationals, the further away they are from the border, the price increases. And also it kind of depends on the nationality of where they're coming from. And so the fact that, we made the joke that the reason why the price increased for him is because of inflation. But I think it's just because the cartels know that they can just continue to increase the price, even if it's within the same kind of, hemisphere, that they can charge these prices, because why wouldn't they? They have a monopoly essentially on this. So they have to work these pretty either dangerous jobs or very, very, unfortunate circumstances in order to pay off that debt.
Support the First TV today and get instant access to exclusive specials like Who is Ron DeSantis, the history of FBI scandals, and America's worst presidents. Visit thefirsttv.com/support or download the First TV app to become a supporter and start watching today.